Good afternoon, students. So today I'm going to do something a little different than my usual lecture on APA. So I'm going to do more of a whiteboard experience. And if you want to see my other lectures, you can always go to my writing channel and you can see my traditional lecture that I give for this week. So for this week, I'm going to change it up a bit, so that makes it worth seeing me from semester to semester. And so this week, we're all working on APA. APA stands for the American Psychological Association. APA is a research notation system that you use when you want to notate or cite your sources. That's uncommon knowledge. So if you have uncommon knowledge, such as medical information, statistics, numerical information, historical information, then you have to cite your source. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over the different ways in which you can use APA. And so APA is used primarily in social sciences and business. And APA is useful because it's used around the world. And believe it or not, APA is also used in different languages. In languages like Chinese, Russian, Spanish, everybody uses APA if you're in the social sciences or if you're in business. So it's very useful to use APA, so it's not just in English. And so when we use APA, we want to use credible sources. And so before I get into credible sources, I want to talk more about APA. And so when we cite sources, and if you're not sure whether or not what you're citing is common knowledge or not common knowledge, then always cite the source. Another mistake students make is they think that if they paraphrase the citation and put it in their own words, then they don't need to cite the source. But even if you cite in your own words, or you put the source in your own words, you still need to cite the source, especially if you're using statistics and numbers. So if I say something like 85% of Americans are fat. Now I've used this particular example everywhere. So if I say 85% of Americans are obese or overweight, how do I know that specific number, 85%? Where did I get that number, 85%, from? And obviously, some researcher had to conduct an experiment, interview people, do data research in order to come up with the number 85% of people are overweight. And so to give credit to that researcher, you have to use APA. And so that's why we use APA in order to avoid plagiarism, because we don't want to plagiarize. And we plagiarize is when we cite a source and use 85% without giving credit to the researcher. And so in real life, if you take information from people without citing the source, then you are, then if their original creator, researcher finds out, they can sue you. And so you can always Google plagiarism scandals to see my point. And so the two kinds of phrases or citations that you can make in APA are in-text citations and reference citations. And in-text citations occur inside the body of your paragraph. That is, right after you cite the fact, then you have to put in the author, the date, and the page number. If you're citing a quotation, word per word, that's known as a direct in-text citation or a direct quote. So when we use a direct quote, then we use the author, the date, and the page number, and we use quotation marks. The second kind of APA in-text citation is a paraphrase quote. A paraphrase quote is when we paraphrase or put the quote in our own words. And so with a paraphrase quote, you don't need quotation marks. All you need to have is just the author and then the date. And we put the author and the date right after the citation. Then the third kind of citation in APA is known as a reference citation. A reference citation is what you put at the very end of the paper. Now, a very common error among students is that they just give me the website address for their reference citation. When actually your reference citation includes the last name and the first name of the author, then you have the date, then you have the article name, then you have the publication name, and then you have the page number. Now, that's for a book. If you have a website, you still have the same thing. You have the last name of the author, first name of the author, the date, the article name, and then the website name, and then retrieved whatever today's date is from web address. So you don't just give me a web address at the end of your paper or at the end of your post. So if you're writing a post and you're citing sources and numbers, you also have to use APA to cite your source properly. And you use in-text citations inside the body of your post. And then you write your reference citation at the very end after your post, just like you would in a paper. So we place our reference citations after the last page of the paper. And so then we put it into left hanging indent. And that is that you have, it's the opposite of what you do for a paragraph. When we write a paragraph, we always indent 5 spaces, and then we write our paragraphs, and then everything else is left justified. But when we have reference citations, we do the opposite, called left hanging indent, where you have everything this way, and well, you'll look it up. So the left hanging indent is only for APA. It's only for your reference page. I will do a video only on left hanging indent in my next video. But for now, all I'm going to do is teach you how to do the APA, how to do a direct quote, how to do a paraphrase quote, and how to do a reference citation. So it bears repeating. And so I will go over all of this, and then I will do it. So instead of having my usual notes in which I go over, I'm going to try to liven it up, because people tell me they actually like looking at my mug, in other words, my face, as I talk, rather than look at a sheet of paper. So that's why I'm changing up my lecture for this week, and you're not going to be looking at so much paper. So let's get on to our APA and American Psychological Association. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share my whiteboard. So basically, let's see if I do this correctly. Right. So like I said, APA stands for American Psychological Association. And then when you have a direct quote, that is when you quote, when you cite directly, verbatim. And then when you have a direct quote, you put quotation marks, and you would say 80% of Americans are obese. And then you're going to put in Smith, you're going to put in the date, page number. That's it. That's a direct quote. Then the paraphrase quote is when you summarize, okay? When you summarize the direct quote. So here, a paraphrase quote would be, the majority of Americans are overweight. We don't need quotation marks, and all we have to do is put in Smith 2022. And that's it, all right? So here you have your direct quote and your paraphrase quote. And then at the end of your paper, you're going to have your reference citation. The reference citation consists of the last name of the author, first name, date, article name, publication or website name, and then you have page number or edition, like volume, oops, edition, page number, and then if it's from a website, you would say retrieved June 15th, 2022 from www.website.gov. That pretty much is your reference citation. And we place the reference citation at the very end of the paper, after the last page. And so here, an example would be Smith, Patrick, 2022, obesity in America. And by the way, you also use black ink, not blue like the way it is here. That's just the way it turned out here in my whiteboard. It's obesity in America, and then you need to italicize obesity in America. Not sure if I can italicize here. I guess not. And then you're going to write in cdc.gov, website name, then June 15, 2022 from www.website.gov. That pretty much covers it. So that is APA in a nutshell. And when we use APA, we want to use only one citation per paragraph. And that's known as, I'm going to put this, see if I could put this elsewhere. I'm going to put this. And so we use pie structure. And that means that we use only one in-text citation paragraph. E stands for the main point of the main point of your paragraph, your topic sentence. That's going to be your topic sentence. And then in-text citation. E is an explanation of that in-text citation in 5 sentences. So an example of this would be something like, most Americans these days eat too much. Foods with too much fat. As a matter of fact, and this is where you put in your in-text citation. 80% Americans are obese. Then you put in that would be your in-text citation. And then let's see if this will go a little farther. And then you would write in your 5 sentences. And then you write 5 sentences about obesity in the United States. That means 5 of your own sentences, and not something that you took from, obesity is a huge problem. So here I'm writing like 5 sentences about that explains the in-text citation. So I say most Americans these days eat too much food, junk food. They eat foods with too much fat. And then you put in your one in-text citation. As a matter of fact, 80% of Americans are obese. Then you put in the author's name, 2022, and then page 22. Then you write in your 5 sentences. So here you have your main point. Most Americans eat too much. Then you have your in-text citation, where you have 80% of Americans are obese. And then you have your explanation of that in-text citation in 5 sentences. People do not get enough exercise. They eat too much, then they end up being overweight. You can also write a story. You could say that John, patient in my clinic, is 500 pounds. He is morbidly obese and has come into the clinic so that I can help him also in order to lose, that sort of thing. And then you would say, John needs to exercise, diet, eat a sensible diet to lose weight. And that's it. And so here is an example of a pie structure paragraph where you have your main point, and you have your in-text, that would be P, then you have your in-text citation and your 5 sentences. So this pretty much wraps up my lecture on in-text citations. Another topic I will go over, and so that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about for APA and in-text citations. And so you better grab this because I'm going to make all of this disappear as I go on to my next topic. And so in my next topic, I'm going to talk about how do we find credible sources? How do we know that the website that we're using is credible or not? And so credible sources means that you can believe in these sources. And we never use Wikipedia. That's not a credible source. Credible source is like peer-reviewed articles in your online library, scholarly journals, anything in your online library. Has credible sources. Sources. But what if you're using the internet and then you don't know the difference between how do I know if this website is credible or not? And so that's when you use CAPAL. C means for how current is the article. It has to be within 10 years. A talks about authorship. Who wrote the article? Did an expert write the article? P stands for purpose. Is it an ad? Because if it's an ad, then it's not credible, because then somebody's just trying to sell you a product. They'll make up anything off the top of their head just to get you to buy a product. So you have to make sure that the website or the source is not an advertisement. O, objectivity. So objectivity means that it contains no bias. So that's got to do with, let's say you're watching the news on television, and let's say that the channel only focuses on how brilliant President Biden is and never focuses on any of his mistakes. That's bias, because you only focus on one side of the issue. So in order for something not to have bias, then you have to have a fair and balanced presentation where somebody talks about, well, President Biden made these accomplishments, but on the other hand, he made these mistakes. And so you need to have a balanced presentation. So that's objectivity, balanced and fair. So is it balanced and fair? And then the last one is writing style. Are there any grammar errors? Does it look professional? Does the author have credentials? That actually has to do with authorship. So does it have logical essay structure? This would be appeal, logic, logos. Authorship, ethos, appeal to credibility. And objectivity, everything else would be pathos. In other words, appeal to emotion. So we use kapow in order to ascertain whether or not our source is credible. So we use kapow to ascertain whether or not source is credible. If the source does not pass the kapow test, then it's not credible. That's how you can tell. Okay, now any source in Google Scholar is a credible source. So if you go to Google Scholar or your online library, everything is credible. The non-credible sources, that is sources you do not want to use, include Wikipedia, blogs, small websites, satire websites like The Onion or Babylon Bee. Those are all non-credible sources. And any source so those are some examples of non-credible sources, as well as National Enquirer or anything you see in the grocery store, that they put right next to the cashier. And so that's how you find credible sources, is that you use kapow. And then, as I say, everything else is not. And if the source does not pass the kapow test, then it is not a credible source. So that about covers, today's lecture is pretty short. And if you want to a much longer lecture about APA credible sources, you can always look up my previous lectures on this week's lecture. And so this week, I just wanted to focus on APA and credible sources. So I hope you all have a really great week, and see you next week.